he got an order to list a home in Edgewood, and he went to the home. It was vacant. He put the lockbox on the door, put the sign in the yard, sold it. About 2 weeks after closing, a call comes into the office, and it turned out it was the house next door. The bank had sent him the wrong address. And so that's how crazy 2008, 9, and 10 were. I mean, those kinds of things were happening. Like, can you imagine someone selling a home that was like,
yeah, you're
how
joking,
do you undo
right?
that? No, I'm not joking.
Gosh.
Like that is the insanity that was that time.
Welcome to ATL, All Things Local, the podcast where two Atlanta natives take a deep dive into the heart of Atlanta communities and neighborhoods. I'm Adam Mincy, your go-to Atlanta realtor.
And I'm Jeff Goddard, your trusted lender. Together, we're here to give you the inside scoop on areas in ATL, from their rich histories to their contemporary amenities.
So sit back and relax while we explore all that Atlanta has to offer.
What's up, guys? Welcome to ATL, All Things Local, where we dive into local Atlanta neighborhoods and explore what it would be like to live in each and every one of these neighborhoods, and also give you a little bit of a brief history on the neighborhoods. I'm Adam Mincy, a local real estate expert here in Atlanta, and I am co-hosted with the legendary Jeffy Goddard, an ex-retiree legend in the real estate industry, now a legend in the lending world. He is the man to go to if you're thinking of moving here for any and all of your mortgage needs. Jeffy, you excited for today's show?
Adam, I couldn't be more excited about Edgewood. You know what I like about Edgewood?
What do you like about Edgewood?
It's edgy. It's got the perfect name for an Atlanta neighborhood.
Jeez, that was punny.
It was punny, but it's true. Like, I've always felt like Edgewood had a bit of an edge to it. You know, because I lived in Candler Park. I'd hang out with friends in Edgewood. They were always a little more on the edge. You know, like there were, well, it was just different.
Its home prices have always kind of been a little bit less than its surrounding neighborhood. So it's bordered mainly by Kirkwood. Kirkwood is a neighborhood that's seen a lot of growth over the last 10 years. The other side would be Reynoldstown, which has seen huge exponential growth, especially with the BeltLine coming in right there. And then you have Edgewood, who kind of sits in between the two neighborhoods. Some people would call it East Atlanta. It is on the east side of Atlanta. But Edgewood is its own independent neighborhood. Candler Park is on the other side of the tracks as well, and that's always been a very high-valued neighborhood.
In Atlanta, it's important to note for those looking to move here, like the neighborhoods on the east-west MARTA line, you know, Inman Park, Reynoldstown, Candler Park, Edgewood, they're different neighborhoods. And it's not like the neighborhoods span across tracks.
Right.
It's kind of interesting that way.
Like they're separated by the tracks.
Yeah. And I think the reason for that is because before the MARTA line, it was a railroad line.
Yeah, the Georgia Railroad.
It's not like an interstate came in and dissected a neighborhood. That railroad line was there when these neighborhoods were built.
Yeah, that's right. And if you want to explore Edgewood a little bit, one of the main things we use Edgewood for in town would be their shopping district. It is the big box store shopping district. We call it Edgewood Shopping Center. And it is right off Moreland Avenue. And Moreland is the edge of Edgewood, if you will. So more puns will continue throughout the entire show. But, you know, it was developed by Fuqua, and it is got a Target, most importantly.
Best Buy.
Yes. And then it's got Lowe's for all of you handy DIYers.
And it's got Five Guys.
Oh, yeah. The original smash burger, if you will.
But when that was built in the early 2000s, that was Atlanta Gaslight land. It was a lot of land in the middle of town that was mainly just a big building that wasn't utilized very much, and several trucks and a lot of asphalt. It just took a long time because before that was built, if you lived in Candler Park, which is just across the tracks from Edgewood, and you wanted to go to a grocery store, before the mid-90s, you had to go to the little grocery store in Emory Village. You could go up to Sage Hill because there was a store there as well, but that Edgewood Retail District really transformed that whole area. You could go down Moreland south of I-20 to find a grocery store. There wasn't anything close by.
Yeah. So it really made convenience a really big thing.
Like in '02 or whenever it was, that was all put together. That was a massive shift for the communities around there.
Yeah. And another thing to think about is, so Edgewood is an older community. It was developed a long time ago. So you see a lot of the classic architecture, the bungalows, Craftsman homes, some Victorians. But now you also see a lot of modern homes. There's a lot of there's industrial rebuilds that have now become condos, like Arizona Lofts and France Lofts. You also have an abundance of R5 zoning in Edgewood. That is a different type of zoning than just a standard single family home. It allows for things like duplexes to be built. On an R5 lot, the impervious calculation for land usage is different. So you see a lot of these side-by-side homes being built in Edgewood, which Edgewood does have more density than other neighborhoods. A couple of other things to note, and we'll show you some examples of homes if you're tuning in on YouTube. Edgewood is not necessarily known for its parks, but it does have 2 parks in it. One is kind of on the line, Walker Park, and then you also have Cohen Park, which is probably the largest park that's technically in Kirkwood.
What does technically mean in real estate, Adam?
Technically means, for the purist out there in the world, it's either going to be one or the other. I feel like what you put in the MLS is what
will sell the home better. Is it Kirkwood or Edgewood?
Yeah, it would be Kirkwood, but you can't put something off Wiley Street as Kirkwood. Right?
Well, yeah, if you'd get hand slapped. I don't think you'd go to jail though, right?
No, I don't think you would go to jail. Yeah. So there's a couple of parks in the neighborhood. There's a trolley line trail that is now a BeltLine connector trail. You'll hear us talk a lot about the BeltLine. It's a big thing here in Atlanta. It connects so many parks and neighborhoods, and it is kind of the missing factor for Atlanta and the connectivity. It has arrived for the most part. You know, we've got a couple broken links to it, but they were
for the most part. It's had a huge impact on Atlanta already.
That's right. It has, yes, for sure, in development and growth and all of that. And Edgewood is very much a part of that. So if you were to be in Edgewood, you could easily get to the BeltLine by bike. If you're walking, you're going to be, I would guess, about a mile to a mile and a half, depending on where you're actually at in Edgewood. If you're off Wiley and close to Moreland, you're just going to scoot right across Moreland, and you're going to pick up the Reynoldstown right at Flat Shoals and Breaker, and all of that. So you're pretty close there, and that's a cool part. People in Edgewood do have a good amount of walkability. There's a lot of local shops that have opened there. There's a lot of local restaurants and more coming that are pretty exciting. El Tesoro
that was a big one.
Yeah.
That was such an interesting place. You know, you stand in line outside, either in the sun or the rain or whatever it is, and you eat outside.
It reminds me of like a barbecue spot in Austin, Texas. It's got that kind of trendy stuff, but the food's good.
It's real good.
And then there's a couple other developments where there used to be parking for MARTA. Those have been turned into a sandwich shop called Bonafide, and it is like stacks on stacks meat.
3 meals in one sandwich.
Yeah, but it is Bonafide good. That was opened by the same people that own Banshee over in East Atlanta Village.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And then there's Vin Atlanta right next to that, and that's a local
wine shop.
Yep. So that's really good. What used to be Ration and Dram has now turned into Dead End Drinks back near Arizona Lofts. And that had been there for a long time and been a neighborhood staple.
The cool thing about Arizona Loft is that for any of you looking for a live-work place, they have live-work options right there along Arizona. So you could have your CPA shop on the street and live upstairs. So there's some interesting options in Edgewood that may be outside the norm of what you would find in the rest of Atlanta.
And I think that's kind of what I was hinting on with the different types of zoning. I feel like Atlanta is oftentimes restricted a little bit more than Edgewood. Edgewood tends to have a little bit different zoning. There's actually a really cool place in Edgewood off of Finley Street called the Finley Street Cottages. And it was one developer took 2 homes next to each other, and they were both R5 lots. And he developed a courtyard, and I'll show some video if you're on YouTube of this, but he developed a courtyard in the middle of these homes in the back, and then built all of these homes around it and rented them all out. The homes in the front are like duplexes and triplexes. And then each little cottage he built are like these little 2-bedroom or 1-bedroom units all for affordability, which we do have a bit of an issue, I'm sure, as most major cities do.
I can't wait to see that.
And that's the same people that did the tiny house development out in Clarkston.
Mm-hmm.
They had a hand in that. And they do offer tours of these places if you'd like to check that out. I know you had done a little bit of research on the history of Edgewood. Tell me
Sure.
how this neighborhood came to be.
Edgewood in 1908 became its own municipality. Mid 1800s, if you look at the homes in Edgewood, you'll find homes built prior to the Civil War, some dating back prior to 1865, and which is very rare in Atlanta to find homes like that. So it's got some real history to it. And the primary reason it existed was that it was on that east-west railroad line coming out of Atlanta, soon followed by the trolley line, which was a major way for people in these Atlanta suburbs. This is in town Atlanta now, but it was considered a suburb then. Those trolley lines served Inman Park, Candler Park, Edgewood, Kirkwood, all of those neighborhoods to the east. In 1908, Edgewood officially became its own municipality, and I'm assuming it's the same back then as it is now. When a city annexes another part of the earth, it's to get the tax revenue. So City of Atlanta annexed Edgewood. And obviously that was way before zoning. It's interesting that Edgewood has such different zoning, even though they were a part of the City of Atlanta since 1909. A lot of the history of this east side of town is related to the railroad and the Civil War. The primary east-west battles in the Civil War went through those neighborhoods. The railroad lines were the lines that were being used to supply the troops for the fight, and the lines that were being cut to use against the Confederate troops or the city of Atlanta itself. There's so much history. Every street corner in those neighborhoods seems to have one of those huge green metal or steel historic markers. Somebody's troops did something here, or somebody's cannon's still sitting there or something. There's a lot of that history there. But typical to most in-town American cities, there was the mid-20th century change, where a lot of people moved to the suburbs, and the, quote, suburbs that were originally developed, which were now considered in town, either started to lose value or went into disrepair. Same thing happened in Edgewood. Fun fact about Edgewood when I was a realtor is that it was one of the communities that was very impacted by the mortgage crisis in 2008. And it was one of the neighborhoods where there were just streets lined with foreclosures. And at the time, I worked in a real estate office, and there was a gentleman there who smartly enough had figured out how to list homes for a bank. And he got a lot of listings in that time. And he got an order to list a home in Edgewood. And he went to the home. It was vacant. He put the lockbox on the door, put the sign in the yard, sold it. About 2 weeks after closing, a call comes into the office, and it turned out it was the house next door. The bank had sent him the wrong address. Gosh. And so that's how crazy 2008, 9, and 10 were. I mean, those kinds of things were happening. Like, can you imagine someone selling a home that was like,
yeah, you're
how
joking,
do you undo
right?
that? No, I'm not
my
joking.
gosh.
Like that is the insanity that was that time in real estate. So that has passed. But what I think the neighborhoods that were really impacted, because Kirkwood didn't make the change. Kirkwood didn't quite get a foothold prior to 2009,
Right.
and now it has, and Edgewood has as well. So while Candler Park and Lake Claire just kind of flatlined during the crisis, Kirkwood really suffered. Edgewood really suffered. And what that means is we had a lot of opportunity for more affordable development in the last 15 years in those areas.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think you see Edgewood has always, in my career, I've been in real estate for a little over 10 years now. Edgewood has been the slower growth one, where Kirkwood has felt very accelerated, right? But Edgewood is one of those neighborhoods where you kind of drive in. It does have tighter streets. As you kind of drive the streets, you feel that there is a lot of gentrification that has gone on, but it's been a slower pace than Kirkwood. Whereas Kirkwood, you drive down today, and it has already gone through those massive changes of gentrification, and you don't really see that you see it happening now in Edgewood, whereas Kirkwood, I feel it's already happened, right? I think one thing we didn't mention too, a big new development that is still kind of in the works, in and on the border of Kirkwood and Edgewood would be Pullman Yards. And Pullman Yards is getting a massive overhaul. One of those things that's going to go in there is going to be a music venue, right? And we've seen a couple newer music venues. There's one a stone throw away from.
So this was a factory to build Pullman train cars.
Right. And it's right off of this same, rail line that we're talking about for MARTA. And it now hosts a lot of bigger, they do the Stranger Things experience. They've done Jurassic Park experience.
And prior to that, it was a haven for graffiti artists.
It was abandoned.
Urban exploration. And then once the development kind of got started, even though nothing was really changing, then the movie industry started to use it. What was that movie they did where the cars they had to drive through this course inside the factory?
Oh, I don't know.
You remember that? We'll have to look this up. But yeah, so it was used by the movie industry for a while as a big industrial space.
Yeah.
That they could do shoots. And now it's being used for these big art exhibits. But along Rogers Street, where the Pullman Yards is located, has seen a huge explosion of new developments.
Yeah, there's apartments, townhomes, and there's a fun path that goes from Rogers Street through Cohen Park and then back down Hosea, and that's a connector trail too to Stone Mountain Park, which you'll hear us talk a lot about too. That's Freedom Park Trail as well, and that connects Freedom Park Trail to the BeltLine. So when I would ride my bike, I could make a loop out of that and come back up and get back to Ponce Highland, leaving on Freedom Trail and coming back.
Was this before or after you took the training wheels off your bike?
Bro, I never had training. I've got the real deal. Yeah. So Edgewood is a very exciting neighborhood to live in. It does feel very urban. It is a mix of homes, right? So you could have a bungalow that would be a 2-bedroom bungalow starting in probably the low 500s would be, I would guess, about your affordability there. If you were getting something nice, you could find something a little bit cheaper, but it probably needs some work. And all the way up to $1 million, modern homes that exist there. So there's also traditional homes that have been built there. I'm listing one this week that is a traditional Craftsman built in 2015. It's got a 2-car garage.
What's it going to list at?
It's going to list at $825. Yeah, so a 4.5,
which is great for in-town Atlanta to have a newer construction home that has historic charm and things that you wouldn't find, say, if you bought a home built in the 20s, like a 2-car garage,
right?
And it's under $1 million.
Yeah, it's under $1 million. That's the great part about Edgewood is if it were in Kirkwood, it would be $1 million. If it were in Reynoldstown, it'd be 1.1, 1.2, right? So,
and if it were just across the tracks, it'd be even more.
That's right. If it were in Candler Park, it'd be 1.5. Yeah. So Edgewood does have a little bit of affordability. If you want to be somewhere that's in town, walkable, is close to shopping, like we said, Edgewood Shopping District is a huge hub. I would probably say get your shopping done during the week. The weekends tend to be pretty hectic there, especially the Target runs. But ultimately, it is a really great thing that has happened for the in-town community to have the Edgewood Shopping District built there. And Fuqua has actually built another one, Madison Yards, not far from there, right on Edgewood and Glenwood Park. So we'll talk about those neighborhoods shortly. But yeah, anything else you'd like to add about Edgewood?
I think the thing about Edgewood that stands out the most to me is proximity to things that matter to people in Atlanta.
Yeah.
You're close to I-20, you're close to the MARTA line, you're close to shopping areas. you really have a lot. It's a good bang for your buck neighborhood.
I would agree with that.
Yeah. So I think that's the takeaway for Edgewood for me.
Well, awesome. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Again, Jeff Goddard, aka Jeffy, and I'm Adam Mincy. We'll see you next week when we cover another neighborhood, but thanks so much for listening.
Peace out.